Hey, it's Stoddy B, and today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about getting started with Star Trek Attack Wing in the year of our Lord 2026. So, I I think that for Star Trek Attack Wing there is not enough content when it comes to getting started or how to play or what the game is. There's a lot of content if you go and look for it that came out back when the game was a lot more new, so 2013, 2014, but even then there's not that much of it. And the problem is that the state of the game has actually changed quite a lot over the last 13 years. And I don't know, when I was a new player about 2 or 3 years ago, I really felt starved for current, so to speak, Star Trek Attack Wing content. So that's one of the reasons I'm making videos like this, but my hope is to help you follow in my footsteps and talk a little bit about what are the best ways to buy into the game or to participate in the game currently. Hopefully this video doesn't get wildly out of date. In some sense, hopefully it does, but in another sense, hopefully it doesn't. But I'm just going to talk a little bit about what is it like right now, and what would I recommend to a newer player right now. So the first big thing for me is joining and participating in the community. Anything that I say, great, take it with a grain of salt. I'm hoping to help you, but there are going to be a lot of opinions out there. As I hinted, things may change. So if you ever want the most current, up to date, and diverse set of opinions, you're going to want to get into the community. There are all kinds of resources out there to help you get on board. People will teach you how to play, people will play with you, so on and so forth. So, community is going to be one of the biggest things with this game. This game isn't widely popular enough to provide the online presence that some of the other big games have. So if you're going to start something like, say, Magic the Gathering, there's an abundance of content for that game. If you go look on YouTube, you'll be flooded with videos that are teaching you how to play, teaching you strategy, teaching you nuance, talking about the current meta, talking about meta changing over time, whatever. If you want a video about Magic on any given topic of Magic, you're going to find it. With Star Trek Attack Wing, good luck, right? If you walk into any given local game store, probably they have Magic the Gathering, and if they don't, they can talk to you competently about it. And that is just not the case for Star Trek Attack Wing. You can walk into a local game store and say, "Do you guys sell Star Trek Attack Wing, or like play it here?" In my limited experience, the typical answer is, "What's that?" I do know that some local stores used to carry it, but I haven't found one local to me that carries it. So, online community is a really big thing when it comes to this game. So, on that note, what are the online communities I recommend, and how would you get involved with them? So, the first one for me is, and I personally think this is the biggest by far, it's the Fremont Reformation League. It's on Discord. So if you use Discord, great. If you don't, Discord is free. That's another topic as to whether you want to use Discord or not. But if you are someone who is interested in using Discord, or you don't have a problem with it, download Discord. There is a server called the Fremont Reformation. And if you join that, which there's a link in my channel description, I'll put a link in the video description, and there's technically a link on the screen. Just join it is the point. The first thing you're going to see in here, or one of the first things, is this Prime Directive channel. This is going to be everything that you need to get the lay of the land for what's what in Fremont, as well as point you in the directions of some of the resources that you can use. So they have case in point, Noel. I'm giving some side eye to some of the people that run this, because I've pointed this out before. But this is technically not the most current version of their rulebook. But one of the great things that they do, for instance, is they keep an up-to-date version of the rulebook that is way more robust and complete compared to the official rulebook that comes shipped with the game. So, whenever you first get your hands on some Star Trek content, Star Trek Attack Wing content, you're going to look through that rulebook, and it's a great way to get started. And for the most part, you'll be covered with that. But if you start really getting into the game and putting all the different cards together, it's not going to be very long before you are either confused or you run into a specific scenario that just isn't really well covered by the rulebook. The rulebook is very much more in the realm of like getting started with like a board game and not really in the realm of like a living, ongoing competitive game, in my opinion. So they have supplemented the rulebook significantly. If it wasn't for this, I personally think I wouldn't be able to be this invested in the game. So I highly recommend checking that out, at least once you are well into being started. I wouldn't start there. Fremont runs online events for playing the game, and the reason why I really recommend Fremont is because, as far as I'm concerned, this is basically the only actual online presence for playing Star Trek Attack Wing. There are other communities for talking about it and learning more about it. This is the community if you want to actually play it online. So, and then also it's by far, as far as I can tell, the most active community for Attack Wing as well. So definitely check it out. You can find out, they have guides on how to get started. It's kind of like I'm giving you now, so just read through this and probably you'll have everything you need. There should be in here a... oh no, I knew I should have pulled this up before I started recording. There should be in here a getting started link with the different resources to actually start if you can't get your hands on physical product, and I am missing it. Oh, you know what? It's probably in an announcement somewhere. Okay, I'll hunt that down and I'll put a link in my description for the video. But one of the links in this server, which unfortunately it's not as prominent as I thought it would be, there's something you can print. So if you can't actually get your hands on physical material, the starter set material, they actually have a template set that you can print yourself to play at home physically, which is really nice as well, because one of the problems with this game is that availability is not great. So we'll talk about that more in a minute. The short version of this part is join Fremont if you want to actually play with people, if you want to really discuss the game in depth, whether that's casually or competitively. This is the place, in my opinion, to do that. It's a fantastic resource to have, even if it's not really your main bag or main source that you ultimately commit to. So Fremont, first and foremost, join that. If you don't use Discord or whatever, that's unfortunate. But yeah, I would try to join this if you can. Now, I can't sing enough praise, right? Now, the other big things I want you guys to know about would be Board Game Geek, which probably you already know about if you're playing the game. But Board Game Geek is a website that basically just tracks all things board games. So basically, if it's a board game, it will be featured here, and you'll be able to see information about it as well as pictures of it, reviews, anything like that. There's also custom-made fan content that you'll find in here, which can be really nice. So this is a really great place to check if you're looking for something or trying to learn more about the game. Board Game Geek, you can search at the top here, just go Star Trek Attack Wing, and it will pull up the game as well as anything else that is pulled up with respect to that to that title. And like, long story short, you see like expansion packs and things like that, right? The thing to be aware of is that it can be a little hard to find what you're looking for because each expansion pack is its own entry in here. It's not like you go to Star Trek Attack Wing and then it's just like everything is in that branch or something. Each thing is kind of its own individual thing. So for example, if you were looking for the 2017 starter, you'd kind of have to dig. It's not just, it's like 2013 is the whole game plus the specific starter. Then if you wanted the 2017 starter, you'd have to actually, like, I don't even think, 2017 doesn't do it. You have to actually put in, like, Federation versus Cleon, starter set, right? And it's Cleons even. So just kind of be aware of that. One thing that you can do if you're trying to figure out more about what was in a given set or when some set came out or what have you, you can click expansions here, and it will take you into a year-released default sorting of everything that's been released for the game. I personally have found this helpful before. You can see people's reviews of the specific releases. A lot of them will have pictures of the contents, so it can be really nice. You also can go to files here, and you'll see that a lot of people have put up all kinds of helpful things, like an official print and play minefield token, right? So if you're looking to make your own things, or once you start really engaging with the game, you want to get more content, there's fan content in here. I would check this out. But yeah, Board Game Geek is a great place to go. People talk about the game here. People post helpful things here. Check it out. You can find out a lot more about the game this way as well. All right, last one, Facebook. So I don't really use Facebook, all told. However, you know, one of the places where you can get involved with this game is on Facebook. So the Star Trek Attack Wing community group exists. This is, as far as I know, really the only other big place to talk about Attack Wing. As you can see, people do a lot like posting pictures. They'll post their own custom scenarios and fan-made content. People will discuss the game here. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of more or less what you would expect, I suppose, when it comes to a Facebook group. Custom paint job. It's one of the better ones I've seen. But yeah, I mean, it's just one more place you can go to check things out and talk about the game. I've learned a lot from here, and I think it's a cool thing to have in your feed if Facebook is your thing. Unfortunately, if you want to really engage with the game, you kind of have to go one of these two routes. But yeah, I mean, I recommend both. Another group that you should check out if you're just getting started is the Star Trek Attack Wing Trading Post. So my experience with this, and what seems to be others' experience with this, is that they can be very, very, very slow to accept your request to join, but they will eventually accept your request to join. So I would go ahead and put that request to join this group in now, and hopefully by the time you need it or want it, you'll actually have been approved and you can check it out. What this is for is specifically to buy, sell, and trade Attack Wing content. So the first group we looked at, you cannot do, or you're not supposed to do, any kind of like trading talk. And that's also true of Fremont. You're not supposed to sell or solicit in Fremont either. So both groups, as far as I've seen, have been a little bit lenient in the sense that they'll sort of let someone advertise if they're selling or advertise if they're wanting to buy, but they don't want the conversation to go any further than that. So you can say like, hey, I'm looking to sell this. Can someone please contact me if you're interested? As far as I've seen, that usually ends up, that flies okay, but they don't want people actually doing the trading or discussing it further in the group. They want that to be taken somewhere else. So just be aware of that. Now, if you're just getting started, that can pose a bit of a problem for you because one of your big questions is going to ultimately be, how do I buy this stuff? Which I'll talk about as its own separate topic. But this is one of the places where you can buy this stuff. So definitely join this. The next one is Star Trek Trading Marketplace. This is a general Star Trek buy and sell group, and sometimes Attack Wing content will appear in here. You can join this, and maybe you get lucky. I haven't really found it to be all that helpful when it comes to Attack Wing, but I have seen a couple things pop up in here over the like 2 or 3 years I've been looking at it. So this is really the big one you want. Just you have to be aware that it'll take a while for you to get approved. Okay, so we talked about all the different communities. I would definitely start there because people will be happy to extend the hand and help you on, right? If you post to Board Game Geek, someone will give you information. If you join Fremont, people will reach out to you actively and offer help. If you ask for a learning game, people will help you there. I guess I didn't mention too much about that, but there are a heck of a lot of channels in here, which is a little daunting, I guess is the best way to put it when you first get started. The best I can say about that is I'm sorry. They tried their best to really organize it, and maybe they went a little overboard. But this first post tries to help you a little bit to understand what's what. For the most part, if you take your time and just sort of read through things, you'll kind of get a good understanding of what is supposed to go where. But basically, as a quick rundown or rule, I probably shouldn't be clicking through these. Basically, as a quick rundown and rule of thumb, if you want to talk about the game, you can do this here. If you want to talk about, if you have a question about rules, you can do this here. If you, what's another good one? Okay, if you are looking for a game, you will find that in looking for learning game would be the one you would want to use, but there are 3, unfortunately. I say unfortunately just because I understand that this can be a little much for someone when they're first starting out, right? Not that it's a problem that there's a lot, it's just it's hard to really summarize everything for someone who's just looking at it for the first time. So, looking for game is your default answer. Looking for learning game is probably what you want, and then looking for a challenge. So it's trying to distinguish between are we bringing our best? You know, I want to try this fleet out, and I think it's very viable and competitive. Or hey, I'm just getting started. I don't want someone to bring their A game. I just want to try and get this game figured out, or try a fleet that I'm just putting together, or whatever. Right? Looking for game is your default answer. Use any of them. I guess use either of those two. Don't use the challenge one, and you should be fine if you just clarify that you're new and you're looking to learn. I will admit and just preface, you don't really see a whole lot of action in these channels. Please don't let that discourage you. I will openly admit that I was a little discouraged when I joined the server and didn't see that there was a lot of posting, and that did dissuade me somewhat from engaging. Please don't let that happen to you. This is a very friendly group, and what I've found is that they talk a lot about the events and channels that are dedicated to those events, and they also, a lot of the most invested people are part of committees, and a lot of those committees have private conversations that aren't accessible to the wider server, which means that there actually is a fair amount of action in here. It's just there's a lot of it that is either segregated into channels that people might not notice, or are happening in private back rooms because they affect a wider, it's like they're talking about how to run the server better or something, right? Or they're talking about the events that they're in. So just kind of keep that in mind. Just because it sounds quiet, it is a bit on the quiet side compared to a major, huge, popular game like like any of those. But it is definitely active, so don't hold back. People are very friendly here. Okay. All right, so let's talk about how do you play the game. There are two ways I know to play the game. That would be either online or physically. Kind of to each their own in terms of which one's better. I will say that while I love playing in person physically, I also kind of prefer playing online just from the standpoint that it is faster and easier to just sit down and play it. So I don't have to go to someone else's house or a game store or have someone come over to my house. I can just go on my computer and play the game. And I really like Attack Wing. I think it's really cool. But one of the problems that I have with Attack Wing is also that setting it up and deconstructing it can take a lot of time and effort. There are a lot of little bits to put together, and just getting set up, especially if it's like your collection and your friends aren't helping, right? It can take a lot of time. And I don't know. I guess short version is I don't necessarily love putting it together and taking it apart again, which playing online completely solves. There's also kind of the I guess awkwardness of physically manipulating the game pieces, which can either take time or just add a little bit of like I said, awkwardness. So online takes care of most of that. So, to each their own again, I guess, is what I'm ultimately saying. I like both, and probably you would too if you tried them out. Playing online, I think that's going to be your number one best bet if you're actually going to try and get a game in. So I would recommend going there, trying online. The other thing is that even if you don't really play with people online, it can be a really good resource for practicing. And we'll talk more about that. So even if you don't really think, oh yeah, I'm going to be playing online all the time and I'm going to be joining in all the events and tournaments and whatever, if that's not really for you, I still encourage you to check this out. So how do you play online? So we already looked at, there's like a guide in Fremont that's going to talk you through this, but the first thing you're going to want is Tabletop Simulator. This is a game that is available on Steam. The kind of short description of what this is it is a, it simulates a tabletop. So it is a physics engine where you can put objects in and manipulate them. And the goal of the game is to simulate having like a physical table with pieces on it that you can play with. The practical implication of this is you can play board games this way. So it's a pretty good game. It's powerful. It has a lot of official board games that are built into it as downloadable content, as well as a lot of fan-made, what is it called, like workshop mods. So you can see here on a regular day, it's not super expensive at $20 US, and also it's it goes on sale in any of the major Steam sales that happen regularly. It looks like right now it's at $9.99. This is during a summer sale. So Steam usually does a summer, a fall, and a winter sale at a minimum. You think they even do a spring one. And that's on top of other sales that happen throughout the year. So if you want to, you can buy this full price, but honestly, I mean, there's really no reason to do that. You can just wait until one of the myriad of sales that happen. It's just a matter of time until it's half price, right? So either way, though, you can pick this up. Hopefully $10 is something that you can spare. But yeah, you buy this, and this is the engine that is used to play the Star Trek Attack Wing mod. So whenever you get the game, you get it installed and all of that, you'll want to jump into your library, find Tabletop Simulator. You're going to want to go to the community. Is there a quick... Yeah, okay, you can go to the workshop. You can get there different ways, but the workshop's where you want to go. And this is going to be all of the different mods that are available for the game. You can look for Star Trek Attack Wing, and I think there's actually a link directly to this in the Fremont Discord. You're looking for the one by Crazy Vulcan. I'm actually not too sure I didn't realize there were this many in here. But anyway, the one you want is the one by Crazy Vulcan. Like I say, there's a link to it directly. You'll also probably want to pick up the Alliance by Crazy Vulcan. That is, well, we'll talk more about what that is. So pick up both of those, and bam, you're able to play. I'll do another video that talks more about playing on Tabletop Simulator specifically. That's not what this video is for. But do pick up Tabletop Simulator so you can play online. If you want to play online, that's the way to do it. Join Fremont specifically, get Tabletop Simulator, go from there. Another resource that you'll want to be familiar with if you're going to play online, but this is a good one even for playing physically, is what's called the Utopia Fleet Builder. So this is something that's maintained by the community. It has all of the cards available in here. So if it's in the game, it is in here as well. There we go. So you can use this for a lot of things. You can use this to build your fleets, which is the primary thing it is intended for. So if I was going to try and say like, oh, I have all these cards, but I'm not really sure how to put them together, you can play around and experiment, put the fleets together, and try and figure out, what ultimately works. So if all I do is just click and drag, or if you're on like mobile, or if you don't want to click and drag for some reason, you just click the card and then left click the slot you're trying to put it into. So this would be saying I want to put Deep Space Nine in my fleet. I want to assign a captain. I click there. It automatically filters for the captain. And then I can do another like drag and drop or what have you. And I just do that for all the things. It's going to keep a running total of my total cost for the ship, as well as a running total for my fleet at the bottom. If I want to add another ship, I just add a ship down here. So it's a powerful fleet builder for the game. It tries to also do its best to correctly do rule interpretations on things like cost and whether or not something can be equipped to a ship. So it's also a really good tool to kind of help you learn the game. It's not 100% accurate, but it's like 95% accurate. So I don't know, maybe if I'm not being generous, I'd say like maybe 90% accurate. But when it comes to like rules interpretations, it's like 95% accurate. And like I say, it's a good resource for the game, period. But in particular, it helps you to learn the game. One thing that's caught me a number of times as a goofy off-the-wall example is Sakana. So this is a fun card that will reduce the cost of weapon upgrades if the cost is 5 or less in the first place. So that is a complicating clause that is easy to forget and misinterpret if you're a brand new player. Whereas if I put this on here and then I do something like try to equip any old weapon that is more than 5 cost, right? I don't really have like the best example handy, but like we'll say this 10 pointer, right? You'll notice it did not, in fact, reduce the cost, right? And that's something that can kind of throw people off. It's correctly calculating the cost in almost all cases, and it'll prevent you from assigning anything that doesn't fit. So it's a good tool. The other thing this can be good for is you can go to Set Viewer, and it's going to show you all of the things that have been released, basically, in roughly the order that they were released, period. So I would check this, like if I wanted to see what was in the Creature Pack, I click here. It's going to show me all the cards that were in the Creature Pack. Now, one thing to keep in mind this is not actually showing me like physically every single copy of the card and every rule document and like every single thing that came in the pack, right? But it is showing me if this card is in Utopia and it originally appeared in this pack, then it is here. So the art might be different. It doesn't show you if there were multiple copies of a card in here or things like that. But it can be cool just to kind of see like what pack was this card from, when did this come out, sort of a thing. So it's a nice supplement to Board Game Geek in that respect. I like that a lot. Another thing you can check out is the mission viewer. So basically every ship or pack that has come out for this game has included a scenario, and if you click that, like the title of the scenario, it's going to tell you the name of the title of the scenario, what pack was released in, and then you click it, it's going to show you all of the text for it. So you can see what would be included in the pack. There are even scans of the original cards. And you can also see the rules for it. So you don't necessarily have to own the content to play the scenario, which is really cool. If you're looking for just more content or more ways to play the game, this is a really good way to do it. All right, that's Utopia. One thing you should also know about is it's called Utopia SPUDS. So main thing that you should know about SPUDS, like what's the simplest way to describe it? It's Utopia, but the community has reduced the cost of ships that were released before there was a reduction in the cost of ships. So once you got to the 2017 starter set, all the ships that were released from then on had a recosting that made the ships cheaper in terms of the points to run them in the game. And so what this site is doing is it's trying to kind of reframe all the costs for the ships with that new framework. So even if a ship has not been officially recosted by WizKids, the community has taken at least a stab at reducing its cost to make it more playable and in line with the content that's come out since. So I personally exclusively use this, which is part of why I'm featuring it here, because I think that this is this brings a lot of the older content into modernity, whatever. It makes it more modern and more playable. So I don't know. I personally prefer this. If you want an actual representation of the stuff that is currently in the game as is, use Utopia. If you want to see what the Fremont community is using primarily, use SPUDS. This also has its own set viewer as well as its mission viewer. If you're using the set viewer for this, keep in mind it's going to show you the recosted ships. So like if I go to mission viewer, if I go to set viewer, and I go to the creature. Okay, so it's showing me this is a 22-point cost ship. If I go to the creature here, this is going to, it's 22 still. Interesting. Let's see, 16. Interesting. 22 for the Ning Tao. 8, okay, so that's a better example, I guess. So Ning Tao is actually a cost 22 ship, whereas in SPUDS we have it as 18. And that's to help reflect the idea that the generic was brought down to 13 whenever they were reprinted later on. This one is showing as 13 as well. Again, Utopia is not exactly quote-unquote perfect. But basically the generic class was actually replaced with a 13. So that doesn't, I guess, technically make sense. It's just not what was originally printed. Anyway, I'm getting into the weeds here. The point is use this if you want to see kind of what was actually printed. See this if you want to do kind of the more community costed, more up-to-date stuff. Okay. If you're going to participate in a Fremont event, you will want to build your fleet using SPUDS. And this can just be a really handy tool for getting your head around how the game works and how you can build ships. If I put together any old thing here, one other thing that I want to show you is that you can export this into Tabletop Simulator using this, which again, this isn't the purpose of this video, but you also can do a print. So if I do on a Windows machine, if I do Control P, this is actually going to bring this up in such a way that I can print it off. So, you might want to do like a black and white or something, right? But the point is that you can print this in such a way that if you build the fleet, With the cards that are on Utopia, you can just print that off and then have it all together rather than necessarily having to go through all your collection and put everything in order and actually bring it to the table. Which, again, if you're getting started and you don't really have the collection, this can be a good way to supplement what you have, especially when it comes to doing something like writing multiple copies of something, because again, availability is the hard part of this game and getting started with it. So no one's going to blame you for like proxying in the comfort of your own home when you can't even buy the content new, right? But anyway, so that's playing online for you. Playing physically. So we just started talking about that with printing things off of Utopia. So I talked about Fremont having the printable assets. If you can't get a starter set, you should start there. That's a good way that you can, if you have other ships for one reason or another, you can play that way. You can get kind of a feel for the game that way as well, and supplement anything you've got. So just know that, especially if for some reason you can't find a complete starter set. But in terms of what to buy, right? Where am I? Okay. So the main place you're going to want to look would be WizKids. So shop.wizkids.com, I suppose. This is the company that makes the game. So again, you probably know it already. However, you can buy from them directly. You can buy from Amazon. You can buy from your local game store if they actually have it. Google Shopping will oftentimes return results. It's a little difficult to find. It's very few and far between, but I would just essentially just Google it. You should be able to find some people that are selling stock online, but I've had success with Google Shopping. I've had success with Amazon, WizKids directly, kinda, and also WizKids directly. Small disclaimer, and then the other places. So this is if you're buying new, right? The thing you're gonna want to frankly look at if you are brand new is buying used, and the places where you would do that would be Facebook and frankly eBay, right? Like, I'm not really a huge eBay guy. For whatever reason, this game really does well on Facebook community, right, as well, or I guess Facebook Marketplace, as well as eBay. So, and honestly, I mean, after my disclaimer with WizKids, I started buying secondhand, and I kind of haven't looked back. I've only had one negative experience while buying secondhand Attack Wing, and that's after buying a fair amount. I have had a lot of very positive experiences buying secondhand Attack Wings, so I recommend that you check that out if you get a starter and you feel like you want to really commit to playing. All right, so what should you buy first? This is probably the thing that is the most important question. In order to play this game, you need a starter set. There are some components you're just going to need, right? So this is what came in the original starter set. The things that you absolutely will need would be ships and specifically the bases, like the plastic bases for the ships, because that's what you technically move around the table. So you would need the plastic base. Arguably, you would need something to simulate the actual like cardboard base that would sit on top of it, so you can simulate firing arcs and things like that. But you don't necessarily need the models. You do need something to simulate the dice. You would need your range ruler, which is kind of frustratingly not a perfect foot length. It's not 12 inches. It's very, very close. It's not actually 12 inches. I measured it against a ruler, and I was a little disappointed. But anyway, so you'll want a range ruler. You'll want each of these maneuver templates, these black things right here. So the way this game works, if you're not already familiar, and this isn't, again, I'll do like another video on how to play the game, but whenever you move a ship, you take one of these maneuver templates, you put it into the little slot on the front of the plastic base, you pick the base up, you put it on the other side of the template, and that's really the main mechanism of the game. The quote-unquote problem when it comes to playing this without buying official content is it can be hard to perfectly simulate the shape of the bases of the ships, the shapes of the templates, and all that. The rest of it, honestly, really, I mean, you don't actually need the official content if you don't want it. I'm not advocating that you, pirate it or avoid paying for the game, but I am saying that, in a pinch, if you can't find the content to purchase, what would you really need? What you really need is just these cardboard components here. So as well as these plastic components over here. The cards, as I've already shown you through Utopia, you technically could, simulate in one way or another, whether that was referencing them on Utopia or printing them or whatever, or just making even handwritten notes if you really wanted to. You also could, use the printables to do the. I mean, you could put anything on the table to count as a planet. If you're just playing casually, it doesn't matter really like what size the planet is. It doesn't matter if you're using things to represent asteroids or obstacles or whatever. It can be what you could play with, like quarters and things like that, right? $50, I guess, if you have those. So, long story short is what you really, really need are that in a way that can't be simulated easily some other way. It would be the range ruler, the maneuver templates, and something like a plastic base. There is a damage deck that wouldn't be very easy to simulate. However, the good news is that all that stuff is in that printables sheet that I talked about. So if you go to Fremont there, and also I'll put a link in my description about it, you'll be able to print off things to at least approximate the range ruler and the templates and all that. So basically anything that's in the 2013 starter set that you would absolutely need to play that can be printed off that. So if you can't find this for some reason, you can at least do that until you can. So to buy, there is, and I guess I should probably start at the beginning. It can be very daunting to figure out where to start with Attack Wing because the availability is so tough. You have to have a starter set, like at least some of the things in the starter set to play. There may be all kinds of things that are available that are not starter sets. Buying those without a starter set leaves you a little bit high and dry. So the other problem is that there are multiple starter sets, and all of them can be very difficult to find. So I could understand a new player not being sure, like, is this okay to buy? Is this the right thing? Will this be good enough? What have you? So I'm trying to inform you as best as I can about what's what. So the first starter set for this game came out in 2013. It's what's pictured here. You get your dice, your maneuver templates, all that other stuff. The 3 ships. One thing to know about this game that I didn't know originally is it is not faction pure. So what I mean by that is you can play basically any ship with basically any captain in alongside basically any other ship with any other captain, right? So you can play Romulans and Cleons and Federation all in the same fleet. You don't have to stick to only Romulans, for instance. So this starter set actually, from that standpoint, is not bad bang for your buck, because you do get all 3 basically of the main iconic ships from the TNG era of Star Trek, and you get a healthy amount of cards for them. If you bought this and you were playing very casually, this is a good start. You would be able to have fun with the game, learn how it works, play with other people, at least in a limited capacity. If you bought this, you could play, with a friend or even maybe another friend, so 3 total, and have a decent enough time. You would probably want for more content, but this is a pretty good place to start. Now, it is worth noting that there is a second edition. Sorry, that's not right. There is a second starter set that came out in 2017, and like I said, it did recost a lot of the ships. The ships are actually cheaper post 2017 compared to 2013 and that era. So, and also one thing that is often criticized or mentioned about Star Trek Attack Wing is that it definitely has power creep. So more modern cards are noticeably cheaper or more powerful than the older cards. So a valid question that someone would ask is the 2013 starter set still relevant? I don't know if the purpose of this video really is to answer that question, and I think it is debatable. I can tell you that one of the best cards in the game is the Jean-Luc Picard that comes in this set and only comes in this set. So at a bare minimum, that is one card that is very good that you would like having, even if you got a lot of other modern cards. The other thing, to be completely transparent, is, if you're putting your fleets together with SPUDS and you're referencing SPUDS, you will have an understanding and access to how some of the cards in the original starter set got updated, and you could just play with modern costs and things of that nature. So I don't really think that, like, if you're really, really worried about playing the way that the modern game is played, I don't think you would have a problem with a little bit of understanding. Like, basically, if you do a little bit of research, you'd be able to play this game perfectly well on the modern spectrum. Um, but admittedly, you don't see that many cards in here showing up in tournaments online, right? Um, Picard is definitely the number one card you would see. Uh, I personally am happy to have bought this, and I think that anyone who wants to get in the game should consider it regardless. Now, that being said, beggars can't be choosers, and I will admit this is the starter set for some reason that is the most prevalent and easy to find. So, this might be a situation where if you actually want the cardboard components, this might be the thing you have to purchase if you want to buy new. So just kind of keep that in mind. I don't think that's bad, but you should just be aware of it. That a nice chunk of the cards in here, if you want to get kind of quote-unquote serious about this game, may not actually be that usable for you. So, I don't know. Is it relevant? I guess my answer is like kind of. Like, not really, if I'm being completely honest. But I don't think that it's a bad pickup when it's on sale. And it's probably going to be what you end up with if you end up buying someone's used collection anyway. So you should at least be familiar with it. So starter set options. This is the first one, 2013. Check it out. Other options that exist would be the 2017 starter set. This is a really good starter set that I really like. It came with 2 Federation ships and 2 Cleon ships. So rather than having one of the big 3 factions, it has 2 each of others that are recognizable. And again, this is when the ships got recosted. So a lot of the cards in this one are a little bit closer to the modern power level. Admittedly, though, it is still not the case that you see a lot of the cards in the starter set being run in modern tournaments. So if your goal is to be very hyper competitive for some reason and to play in person in a very hyper competitive way, these starter sets really don't get you that much besides the templates, if I'm being honest. And I guess the ships themselves, like the models and everything. But yeah, I think the main thing I would really want to tell a new player who was leaning that way was, if that's really how you're feeling, you probably are going to be playing on Tabletop Simulator anyway, and maybe you don't really need to worry too much about, exactly which stuff you're buying physically to support the game. And I would say that really your purchasing at that rate really is more or less just to support the game anyway. So probably you just kind of buy whatever WizKids has and call it a day, because you're going to be doing all your gaming online probably. Now, I don't know. Maybe that doesn't apply to you, but I don't know. I do think the content of this starter set is largely better than the first one. So if you can find this one, go ahead and pick this one up. I think it's great. That introduces the problem, however, which is that this starter set, for one reason or another, was scarce even when it was brand new, and has only become more and more scarce since. To my knowledge, they haven't actually reprinted it at any point. So, finding it is pretty tough. And when you do find it, for some reason, a lot of times it's selling for like $100. I say for some reason. I guess I've already explained why. I don't think it's worth $100. I'm just being honest. But to each their own. If you find it and you want it for $100, spend the $100. It comes with all the same types of cardboard material. It comes with the range ruler, comes with all the maneuver templates you need. I do think it's a little bit more complete, so to speak, and it also includes some more modern components, such as this like initiative token. I don't know, maybe that was in the other starter. I don't think so though. It also has these time tokens, which you'll notice were not in the 2013 starter set. Do you really need time tokens? No, not necessarily. You'll get them from any number of other purchases, and also you could use any other token, right? As long as you know it's a time token, it doesn't matter what you use. But anyway, long story short is, this one is a little bit more modern. It has a lot of the components that you would need and so on. So this is really the better one to get if you can find it for a good price, but $100 is honestly not a good price. That's my opinion. So anyway, You can do this one. Other differences that I didn't mention here. So I think that the objective tokens might be slightly different, these like space stations and everything. And then also the minefield token is a different shape. So the one in the 2013 pack, you'll notice it's this weird kind of, I don't know, nebulous shape. This is a perfect oval. Some people prefer different versions for different reasons. In general, people prefer the oval because it is easier to measure range from. So, and it's also more consistent in that regard. So people like that. Different ship packs came with different things, but a more modern ship pack that had a minefield would probably have this anyway, and then the starter has it. Again, to each their own on that, but just kind of letting you know what are all the differences so you can really make an informed decision. Probably if you're buying this one because it's so hard to find and it's often so expensive, you're probably buying more than just this, if we're being honest. So if you're someone that this is applying to, probably we don't need to really dissect it much further than we have. The only other difference that comes to mind when it comes to what's included here is they did update the damage deck a little bit, but functionally it's still the same. Okay, last starter set option is Star Trek Alliance. So, again, I guess I'm having a bit of an identity crisis with this video. Like, how much am I explaining how to play? How much am I explaining what the different game modes are and things like that? To keep it brief, Star Trek Alliance. So Star Trek Attack Wing is a player versus player head-to-head game. Star Trek Alliance is a player versus environment game taking place in the Dominion War. So the way this would work is each player, or even one player potentially, would control one of these ships, and you are running scenarios against an automated Dominion opponent. So, for example, the first scenario of the game has you going and trying to scan some asteroid objectives and trying to then make it back to your side of the board before the Dominion attack ships destroy your ships. And it's actually a phenomenal way to play the game. It's my preferred way to play the game. I can't recommend it enough. It's fantastic. If you're someone who's not in this to be hyper competitive, you should check out Star Trek Alliance. You will probably like it more than the main game, maybe. And yeah, it's a fantastic product, kind of regardless of Star Trek Attack Wing. This is fantastic. Now, why am I talking about it? Because it serves as both a new way to play the game and also, miraculously, it is a starter set that includes all the components you need to play Star Trek Attack Wing. So this was released in 2021, and like I mentioned, it does have the, I'm not sure if there's a good picture of it in the first set of pictures, but it does have all of the cardboard templates for moving. It has the ship bases. It has, here we go, it has a planet token. It has your target lock, shields. It has the objective tokens somewhere. Everything you need to play the game is in here. And then it also comes with all the like scenario books and all that stuff to play actual like Alliance. So it's actually a very good product. I think it MSRP'd at $50. You usually can find it for less than that. So for my money, I would highly recommend getting the Alliance pack before getting anything else. The only thing to be aware of is the actual cards contained in it are not going to be enough to get you going for competitive Attack Wing. So you don't get any unique named ships. So like, for example, in the 2013 pack, you're going to be getting the Enterprise D. There is no like named Enterprise D or whatever. There's just an Akira class generic ship and an Excelsior class generic ship included. The Jem'Hadar ships in the first box did not come with components you would need to actually play them in Star Trek Attack Wing. So it's not like you could do something like one friend plays the Dominion and the other friend plays the Federation and you play an Attack Wing game. Unfortunately, that's not possible. I mean, you with some elbow grease and some research, you could potentially achieve that, but it's not going to be the same as having bought like a Federation versus Cleon starter set, right? The cards are not made with competitive play in mind. Everything in here is compatible with Attack Wing, but it's not really made with that first and foremost in mind. So if you are picking this up, this is going to be your starter set, and then if you want to play proper Attack Wing competitively, you would need to then pick up other packs to supplement this to actually give you the head-to-head content. But I do think this is the best bang for your buck. It's also one of the more available options, at least at this moment. So I think you should check this one out before you check out others. But, again, it's up to you to decide what's best for you. Pros and cons all around. Biggest con here being that you don't actually get direct attack wing content per se in here. It's its own separate thing that just happens to be a starter set for attack wing. Biggest con for the 2017 one is that you can't find it, and when you do, it's super expensive. The biggest con for the 2013 one is basically that a lot of the content is frankly outdated. So, again, it's going to be up to you and ultimately somewhat up to what you can find. Okay, so that is starters. What you buy, again, you can do it on WizKids, Amazon, eBay, what have you. Right now, the 2013 starter set is available and seems to be very much in stock, I guess is the best way to put it. It's right now listed at $40. I've seen it goes on sale at $20 quite a bit. One thing to know about the WizKids site, again, opinion, is the opinion here is shipping is very expensive. So just be aware, you'll see it say it's like, oh, $19.99. Okay, cool, great, buy. Okay, well, I think they have like a $19.99 minimum order to ship things to you. So this, I guess, would qualify if it was $19.99. But you put this in your cart and then it's like, I don't know, $13, $14 shipping. So just kind of be aware, like you might want to try and get more than one thing at once, or even if it looks really appealing at $20, it's going to be kind of more than that actually coming out of your pocket. But if you look at something like Amazon, a lot of times the shipping will be a little bit better there, and you might be able to find this somewhere else as well. So just take a look for it, keep an eye out, try your best. The main thing I'm going to emphasize when it comes to buying this is be patient. If you're patient, you will find something at a good price. It's not going to be as simple as just going online and saying, here's the one I want. All right. So what else? Okay, so basically what would I pay for an original starter set? About $20, ignoring any kind of shipping or anything or tax. I think $20 is a really good spot for that. I wouldn't pay more than $30 personally, but again, I mean, if it's really all you can find and whatever, like maybe, but I would recommend going in at somewhere between $20 and $30 for this. The value proposition for the new 2017 starter is better. I would still say, like, ideally I would only be paying somewhere between like $30 and $40 for it myself, and that's even kind of acknowledging the fact that it's newer and scarce. I'm not going to venture to give you a recommendation with a more realistic price because I just don't really think it's worth it. I think if you're paying $100 for that, you're overspending, and what you're really buying is the collectability aspect there, and that's kind of more at that point a subjective value proposition. So anyway, I wouldn't personally spend more than like say $30 also on the second starter. 40 kind of tops, but yeah. Then when it comes to Alliance, so it looks like the main WizKids site doesn't have the Alliance 1 box anymore, which is actually a shame. I hope it's not the case it's not available anymore. I would check back here regularly because what's available and what isn't does change a fair amount. So let's see, Star Trek Alliance. Let's see if it comes up. Ooh, it's not coming up. That's pretty unfortunate. So yeah, I guess up until very recently, this was very much available, and it looks like maybe it's not available anymore. I see box 2 here. So that's a bummer. Hopefully that's something you can eventually find, like say on eBay or something like that. The going rate for that was like $40, and you could find it on sale for more like $30 a lot. I've seen it go on sale for even less, but $30 is kind of what I would expect to pay during a sale. So in terms of what I would recommend paying for Alliance in terms of going rate, I would say I wouldn't pay more than like $50 for it. Like even like so $30 or $40 is what I would expect you to pay. Knowing how this stuff goes, it's going to become scarce now that it's not online. People are going to try and jack up the price. I think that if it's really the only thing you can find, or if you think you'd really enjoy playing Alliance, I could see going $50. And that might even have been the MSRP. However, if you see someone who's selling it for like $70+, again, I would recommend you don't do it. Just from like a how you use your money kind of perspective. If it's extremely important to you to have things physically, then by all means, right, you'll have to do your own quality value judgment at that point. But I just find it hard to recommend something for 70 plus bucks to someone when I know that it wasn't selling for that before. Um, and I beyond that, any other valuation is going to be very subjective. I personally paid something like I think I got box one for in the realm of $30. I think I got box two for in the realm of like 30, 35, and then box three was always very scarce. And so that I actually tried to purchase that as WizKids was selling out of it and as everyone was selling out of it. And so I ended up buying mine new from eBay, and I paid about 70 for it. And at the time I felt very silly. Now that I have all three boxes together and have played it, I am very happy that I got the whole complete set when I could. And so for me, that ended up being a very justifiable purchase. I love the Alliance experience. But, I would have a tough time telling someone, yeah, just spend like 30 bucks, or sorry, spend like $70 on box one, or spend like $100 on box one. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up going up that high on eBay eventually if they don't get a reprint, but, I don't know. I'd say just play online or something, right? If you do end up getting another starter and you really feel inclined to play Alliance, this is the Essentials Edition. This is basically like all the like cards and the scenarios and stuff. It doesn't have the ships. It doesn't have the maneuver templates and all the stuff you get in the starter. This is intended for people who already have a lot of Star Trek Attack Wing content who just wanted to play Alliance. So you'll notice it is significantly cheaper, and it is currently in stock. So if you do feel like Alliance is something cool to check out, and you end up getting your hands on something else, check this out for sure. This also goes on sale sometimes, but I don't think I've ever seen it for less than like 16, 15 bucks. It's usually more in the realm of 20, so just going to keep that in mind. But you could always come back to this, and that's another reason why I would say, like, I don't know that you should buy the Alliance 1 box for a ton of money, because you could always technically get this. But, yeah, anyway, enough about that. That's not really the main topic we're here for. Okay, how else should you buy it? You do need a starter set or the content from the starter set, but that's not the only stuff you can buy. They also have... They've come out with content in two different formats, primarily. The first one being the single ship packs. So, it's like a little, sort of like an action figure toy, right? Like it comes with like one ship, and then there's a bunch of cardboard and cards in the back, and people would buy them one ship at a time. They did that, I don't know, all the way up until like something akin to like 2018. Or at least, I don't know, 2017-ish. So that used to be how you would do it. Each of those ships was $15 when they were new. Some of them would go for less, some of them would go for more, but $15 was the typical price, and it was MSRP. Then they started to come out with what are called faction packs. And those faction packs would have 4 ships each. They would have some sort of a theme. Typically, they would all be of the same faction. And then it would have the cards associated with them and stuff like that. So it was kind of like a fleet in a box was sort of the, I guess, marketing way to look at it. The more practical way to look at it was just more content for the game that they bundled in a much more efficient way than doing it one ship at a time. So I think it is a little bit of an incorrect way to look at faction packs the way that a new player would, thinking, oh, if I get, I don't know, if I get the Federation faction pack, then it's like now I have my Federation fleet put together, and that's all I have to buy is like a starter set and a Federation faction pack. I don't really think that practically that's how the game works. You certainly could do it that way, kind of, but there are some factors to be aware of why I would say like you shouldn't do it that way. Number one, that's just not how the online community handles it. It very much is, here's more content for the game, which happens to come with ships, right? The other, because keep in mind, it's not a faction pure game, so it's really just like, and also power creep is real. So anytime a new faction pack comes out, people are going to be building their fleets with the new cards, but it's not going to be just using those. So it's not the case that you can just buy the one faction pack and then play it in a vacuum. It's not going to be as powerful or as viable as someone who's playing with the entirety of an attack wing collection. it does feel a bit like there are some missing elements, personally speaking, when it comes to only looking at the newer faction packs in a vacuum. Um, then the other thing to keep in mind is uh, it's well, I guess I did sum it up there, right? It's when I look at something, when I look at one of the newer faction packs, it's clear that there are things in there that are meant to play with older content. And there are some cards that just sort of feel like they don't really do anything unless you have that older content. And there are certainly a lot of cards that they really shine whenever you mix them and mash them with other stuff. Oh, right. And then the other reason why not all faction packs are equal by any stretch of the imagination, and especially newer faction packs will generally be more powerful than older ones. So if you do something like just, oh, I really like, I don't know, I really like Dominion, so I'm going to buy this Cardassian faction pack, or I really like Vulcan, so I'm going to buy this Vulcan faction pack. Then your friend is like, okay, I'm going to buy These Are the Voyages faction pack. One of you is going to it's going to be a very imbalanced power level between the two of you, and that's something to be aware of if you're brand new. So I do highly recommend when it comes to buying the physical content, because of the lack of availability and frankly the expense, I would recommend just keeping it as casual as you can. It's more about getting some fun games in. It's not about it's not about getting the best of the best of the best. And if you do want to play that way, you can always achieve that with the online digital content. So don't break your wallet. Keep in mind, no one's playing tournaments of this game at a store, and it's not officially supported in that way, at least at this time. So you don't have to break the bank to be competitive. So anyway, all right, all that out of the way. I've talked for long enough. Let me talk about the other big way I recommend buying into this game. So the default answer is buy new. You can buy one of the starter sets we talked about, and then you can go buy one of the faction packs or more. And this is how you can get a lot of content in one go. The value proposition is pretty good. Each of these is new at $40 full price, plus shipping. And you can usually find these for less. It's very common to find these for in the ballpark of like $35, and it's not uncommon to find them more for like $30. Some of them you will find even as low as $20. The Live Long and Prosper pack for Vulcans, I have seen as low as $20 pretty regularly. The cards are just not as standout, frankly. They're not bad. They're not as viable outside of the faction pack. So it usually doesn't go for a lot of money. I would just wait for WizKids to do a sale. If this is how you want to buy, I would check Amazon regularly to see if something goes cheap. And just buy in once you feel kind of comfortable, recognizing that at any given time it may sell out. And just be, I'm not saying that to tell you, I'm not urging you to buy because of that. I'm just saying, if you find a price you're happy with, just go ahead and buy it, I guess is the point that I'm trying to make. And just recognize that sales do happen pretty regularly. All right, so that's how I would kind of recommend buying in kind of that mode, buying new. The other mode that I would say is buying used. So we already talked about eBay is very viable. In particular, there's a store called the Star Trek Attack Wing Shipyard that is the most prominent by far Attack Wing seller, and I've never bought from him personally, but I can tell you just from impression and talking with other people in the community and just seeing what he does, he is like the best place to buy from. He's high quality, top notch. Check him out. But you can check him out. Now the thing is that this game really adds up. Like each ship on the secondary market being, usually at least $15. Usually more in the realm of like 20 to 30, and if it's a more iconic or viable ship or a rarer one, it can be like 30, 40, 50, even up to like $100. So I personally don't recommend spending $100 on a single ship. So if you're buying from if you're buying it as like a ship by ship basis that way on eBay, just kind of be prepared to be a little selective and recognize you're going to be spending kind of a lot of money. When the real way I would recommend getting started, though, is be on Facebook and be patient. So the Star Trek Attack Wing trading post, it's not uncommon, and it's basically only a matter of time before somebody says they're going to sell off something. Like this guy is selling his collection, 169 ships. What does he list a price somewhere? Okay, well that's a lot of money, I guess, but considering what you're getting, not necessarily that bad if you were to piecemeal it and compare. So this person's selling their collection. This was $400. So look, like this is a really good value proposition, and this kind of thing happens. It happens irregularly, but it happens often enough that if that this is a viable way to get into the game. So get a starter set, see how you like it, right? And then just wait for one of these to happen. And you can buy someone's used collection. Most likely it will be in pretty, I mean, ask questions, right? You're buying used. You do have to ask some clarifying questions, make sure you're getting what you're expecting. But, this is going to be the best bang for your buck, and it's pretty much the only viable way to get old content. So, the ships that were coming out between 2013 and 2018, you're not going to find those new. You're not going to be able to find those cheap, broadly speaking. But if you look for them in bulk like this, you will be able to get into the game and get a sizable collection, get all that content, and it won't necessarily break the bank. Now, keep in mind, you are going to be buying in bulk, which means you are going to be spending a lot of money in one go. So, you need to be sure you actually want to be playing the game at that point. Now, I will, I guess, encourage people and just kind of say that if you do buy this way and you buy in bulk, like that $400 collection we were looking at, you can kind of hedge your bets by at least acknowledging that if you were to actually sort all of that out and try and resell it, you could certainly make your money back, right? Assuming it was all in good condition and complete and all that. So, if you really are worried about it, I would say try and make up your decision for what's the best for you, do your research and all that. But you can always kind of fall back on the idea that resale value will almost certainly be there. At least that's my impression. This is not financial advice. I can't perfectly predict the future. Who knows, right? But it's probably a safe bet that if you really decide you don't like the game or that this was a mistake, you can probably make your money back by just reselling it. But all right, I have talked for about an hour. Hopefully this has been helpful to people. The last thing I really want to leave you on is how do you learn the game from here? So we talked about getting involved in the community. We talked about how you can play online. We talked about playing physically. The last thing is what do you do with all that stuff? I plan to do my own video eventually talking a little bit more about how you actually play the game. But in the meantime, other people's content exists, and it's all really good. Well, at least all the stuff I'm thinking of is really good. And I will try and put links in this video for you to check them out. Some specific mentions I want to give. There's a channel on YouTube called Brush Up Your Game. Heck, I could probably... Let's see. How do I do this? No, that's not what I want to do. How do I... I was going to give a list. Okay, I don't know, whatever. Okay, so Brush Up Your Game is a YouTube channel. Check it out. It's the person that made those videos, his name is David Montgomery. The reason I'm mentioning that is because he is a beloved member of the Star Trek Attack Wing community, and in particular, the Fremont Reformation group on Discord that I mentioned. As far as I understand, he actually started that group. He was a very avid player and pillar of the community who really brought that group together. And like I say, he had a YouTube channel where he was really helping people to get more involved in the game. He, in a lot of ways, as I understand, he was kind of before my time. But as far as I understand, he was basically the face of the game for a lot of people. And I can tell you, while I never interacted with him personally, that his videos really had a profound impact on my ability to get into the game and appreciate the game. His content is still relevant. It's still helpful. Go check it out. Be aware that he is a beloved figure, and unfortunately, he has passed away. So, it's important if you're going to really get into this game, kind of knowing who he is and knowing the significance of that. But again, I would highly encourage you to check out his content because it's very helpful. On a more modern note, Memory Gamma is a channel I talk about a lot, where there's an active current player who just puts together fleet builds and talks about combinations that work well and things like that. So that can be a good intro to just kind of seeing something more, I don't know, modern and like out of the like, not just seeing like the stuff that comes in the box, but like seeing how you can put it together. There's another one called Captain Dunsel's Captain's Log. He's a player that I highly respect, who I think is actually very, very good at the game. and he's talked about a number of topics. He doesn't really have like one specific thing he does, so I would check him out and see if you can find anything helpful from him. And he also did a lot of videos with David Montgomery, so if you recognize his voice, that's why I really respect his input on a lot of those videos. Yeah, those are my big ones. There's also an honorable mention that I have. So this video in particular, this is Strategy How to Fly 4-Box Swarm Part Number 1 X-Wing Miniatures. This is from a channel called ReconPaint. They talk about the game X-Wing, which is extremely similar to the game Attack Wing. Go figure. So the nice thing is that if you are really starved for Attack Wing content, you can check out X-Wing content, and some of it will translate. You might even be surprised how much of it translates. In particular, one thing that was difficult for me to wrap my head around when I was brand new was formation flying and just kind of the movement in general with multiple ships. This video, the vast majority of it will translate to Attack Wing, and he does a fantastic job talking about what he recommends for getting started, how the game mechanics work when it comes to the maneuver templates. So check this video out for sure once you get to the point where you want to learn more about that. And check out the whole channel. But all right, so this brings me to my last, learning the game. What do? You have all your content, you've joined the community. How do you get better? How do you really learn it other than just playing the game, which is obviously the default answer? It's practice, practice, practice. So as you can see, this guy is literally just taking the plastic ship bases and the maneuver templates, and he is seeing how they all work together. He's moving them around and seeing how his game works. And you don't have to set everything up. You don't have to play a whole complex game. Just sit down with the stuff and see, how if I have two ships next to each other and they both do two banks in the same direction, what happens? What does that end up looking like? Just do it. Just move the plastic pieces together and see what happens. Practice, practice, practice like that, but also practice, practice, practice when it comes to your fleet builds. Build fleets. See what works well. See what you like. See what you don't like. Put them on the actual table or go into Tabletop Simulator and practice your first 3 rounds. See, okay, if there's a planet token here and I do these maneuvers, where do I end up? How long does it take me to get to the other end of the board? How long does it take me to get within firing range of the middle of the board? Play some mock games against yourself. See, how quickly can ships come in contact with each other? Put some random objectives or I guess obstacle tokens in the middle of the field and try and fly around them without hitting them. That way you can get used to trying to do maneuvers in tight spaces. There are all kinds of things you can do and lots of ways you can have fun with the game, but the biggest thing I would say is just try your best to engage with it, because that's the only way you're going to get better. You can practice sensor echoes and things like that as well. That's one thing that's kind of tough if you're doing them on the fly. But yeah, so I've talked long enough for sure. I hope that this is helpful to someone. I'm happy to answer questions if you drop a question in a comment. I'm also happy if you go to the Fremont Reformation Discord, ask questions there. I'll help you. Other people will help you. Just get involved, and we're happy to extend a hand and help you on board. But either way, happy flying, and I wish you the best.